time for final thoughts. Instead of focusing on the service and sacrifice of U.S. Army Sergeant LaDavid Johnson and his family, the anti-Trump media have turned this whole ordeal into another baseless and ridiculous attack on our president. Sad. Sergeant Johnson was killed in an ambush earlier this month in Niger. But instead of honoring Sergeant Johnson for his life, legacy, and love of country, the left is focusing on, no, obsessing over, an overheard speakerphone conversation. Yeah, welcome to mainstream media headline news in 2017. It all started when Florida Democratic Congresswoman Frederica overheard President Trump's call to Sergeant Johnson's widow. Now, she admits she didn't hear the entire phone call, but that didn't stop her from peddling her account to CNN. CNN, imagine that. I guess for CNN, an overheard, partial speakerphone call recollection is enough to go on, so long as the core of the news is bashing President Trump, of course. Now get this, President Trump is accused of politicizing the soldier's death. Are you kidding me? That would be Congresswoman Wilson who politicized it. She wants to be the center of attention so badly and knows if she goes on an anti-Trump tirade, the mainstream media will give her airtime. And sadly, she was right. She is a few more senseless rants away from becoming the new crazy Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Why do you seem to only sound the national alarm about the United States military when it suits your anti-Trump narrative? Same question goes to the rest of those in Hollywood, in Congress, in the media. Y'all didn't care when President Obama, Susan Rice, and Hillary Clinton lied to the families of our Benghazi warriors, telling them the terror attack was because of a YouTube video, a total lie. Why didn't you speak out then? Furthermore, most of you have spent the last month or more insisting the national anthem and American flag don't mean much. You've held these whiny NFL kneelers on a social justice pedestal for disrespecting the military, our veterans, and our country, but are now concerned and enraged by Trump's tone on an overheard speakerphone call? Get a grip. Our president loves and respects the military. That's why he called Maisha Johnson. The fact some are twisting this into another attack on the president is sick and wrong. Johnson family, thank you for the service and sacrifice of U.S. Army Sergeant Johnson. May he rest in peace. Those are my final thoughts. From L.A., God bless and take care. It's time for final thoughts. For almost a year, the leftist mainstream media has been obsessed with one thing: Russia, Russia, Russia. It's all we hear about. They say, no, they insist that the Trump campaign colluded with Putin to win this election. After all, there's no way all of their BS poll numbers and Hillary cheerleading could have been misguided, right? Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin had to have stolen this election from Hillary, right? Day after day, the fake news media has hammered the Russia conspiracy home until the real Russia story bubbled up to the surface. The Russia story they don't want to talk about. The Russia story that goes like this. As Mrs. Clinton was beginning her job as Obama's Secretary of State, federal agents stood by and watched as Russian influences massaged their way into the back pockets of Donald Trump? No, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. That's right. Let's talk about a little deal called Uranium-1. The Obama administration, with Mrs. Clinton at the forefront, was knowingly compromising American national security interests. According to The Hill, the FBI, quote, obtained an eyewitness account backed by documents indicating Russian nuclear officials had routed millions of dollars to the U.S. designed to benefit former President Bill Clinton's charitable foundation. Yep, and that was, quoting again, during the time Secretary of State Hillary Clinton served on a government body that provided a favorable decision to Moscow, end quote. That deal would give control of 20% of U.S. uranium to Moscow by way of a mining company called Uranium-1. Oh, and it gets better. The American businessman who cooperated with this investigation tried to file a lawsuit that might have exposed it all, but was threatened and silenced by the Obama administration. The real Russia story is a real doozy. Take one part Obama administration, mix in a whole lot of U.S. uranium, and top it off with some good old-fashioned Clinton pay-to-play, and you've got the Russia bombshell the mainstream media has been waiting for. But because it has nothing to do with Donald Trump and everything to do with crooked Hillary, President Obama, and his State Department, it's no surprise these leftist media cowards will barely touch it. What are you afraid of? I thought you were all about truth. I thought you were all about speaking truth to power. I thought you were fearless and noble and honest journalistic warriors. No. You so-called journalists walk around like your crap doesn't stink while you dedicate all of your time to harassing Sarah Sanders, reporting on overheard speakerphone calls, salacious dossiers, and late-night tweets. You're not journalists. You're not truth-seeking warriors. You're pansies that are either too scared to challenge your leftist idols or too far up Hillary's pantsuit to see what's right in front of your faces. Here's your Russia scandal, and we, the American people, would appreciate it if you'd spend even a tenth the amount of time on it as you do attacking our president. You think we trust you to hold government accountable when you can't even hold yourselves accountable? No. Check yourselves. Seek the truth and report it, even if it doesn't fit the destroy Trump narrative you're after. Those are my final thoughts from LA. God bless and take care.
What we're all embroiled in right now, which is seeing this back and forth between the President of the United States and a Congresswoman in one of these grieving families. Here is a piece of what Congresswoman Wilson said in her own defense about what happened here and why, just on the show moments ago.
I heard his remarks, and I heard him say that I bragged that I secured the money for the building of the FBI building in Miramar, and that's a lie. You know, I feel sorry for General Kelly. He has my sympathy for the loss of his son, but he can't just go on TV and lie on me. I was not even in Congress in 2009 when the money for the building was secured. So that's a lie. How dare he?
All right, let's start off with the general accepted principle that none of this needs to be happening right now. It certainly can't be of benefit to the Johnson family. What is your take on this back and forth?
Well, like I said, I've dealt with this many times. Unfortunately, we've buried more friends than I would care on, wish on anyone, right? And I've seen President Trump. I've been with President Trump at Dover receiving flag draped caskets. I've been there at Dover when President Obama was there. This is a very difficult situation for anyone. I will tell you that the notion that the President of the United States was calling a family with any intent to be callous or anything like that is ridiculous, and that's offensive as well too. This is the Commander-in-Chief. You may not like that he's the Commander-in-Chief, but this is the Commander-in-Chief calling a family. I will tell you, and this has been my experience over the years, that yes, that family members receive information differently. There's no question about that. And this is the most vulnerable time ever. So the way that they feel at this moment will be different from 6 months from now or 6 years from now. And the way that they receive information may be different. But like I said, when I first started this segment, I wish that I could protect this family. I wish that they were protected by this Congresswoman. I listened to her interview, and I'm embarrassed, quite frankly. I'm completely embarrassed by the behavior. She's even said in her interview that the family's tired of the cameras. Well, yeah, they are. I'm sure they are. I mean, she was on all these shows talking about it, and you saw one little line in this conversation with the president and the family. One line, no context, nothing like that. And I just find this. I'm disgusted by it. I mean, I really am. And I feel horrible for this family. I feel horrible for other folks around America. And I'm saddened by the whole episode. And as you said, I think that we can generally agree that this is not helpful for anyone. I know what that family's going through right now. And I really wish that they were protected.
Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. Warning message to parents. If you let your daughter dress up like Moana, the Polynesian Disney princess, for Halloween, you are a racist. That's the message in this article published by Cosmopolitan magazine. It's written by the Red Book editors. It's the dumbest article I've read this week so far, and I would like to tell you why. I'd like to tell you why people like these authors, they are what's wrong with our culture. Let's zip through the article, shall we? The article begins, it's mid-October, which means Halloween is just 2 weeks away, which means it's way past time to decide on a Halloween costume for your kid. Chances are you have a child that is enamored with all things Disney and wants to be all of the princesses, all of them, especially Moana. The article continues, the New York Post recently highlighted an article on raceconscious.org about how that's probably not a good choice if your kid is white, and revealed that moms are freaking out over the culturally appropriative costume. Okay. Raceconscious.org, by the way, yes, that's a real thing. And their website claims on their About Us page that each post on the blog models conversations that are transparent, concrete, and non-judgmental. Many of these conversations, they say, are geared specifically towards white people, but the strategies discussed may be helpful for all. Just so we know what we're dealing with here, a website whose entire premise is that all white people are racist. Every parent's dream manual for rearing their children. Okay, the Cosmo article goes on to say, the original article on raceconscious.org, written by Sashi Ferris, discusses how her white daughter was torn between dressing as Elsa from Frozen or the titular character from Moana. Ferris expresses concern that while an Elsa costume might reinforce notions of white privilege, dressing up as Moana is essentially cultural appropriation, the act of reducing somebody's culture to stereotypes and thereby belittling it. Though Ferris puzzles over how one might wear a Moana costume respectfully, she ultimately decides it's just not a good idea. Okay, first of all, dressing up as Elsa is racist now because she's white. So you're not allowed to dress up your white child as a white princess because of white privilege and white stereotypes, but you can't dress up your white child as a Polynesian princess either because that's cultural appropriation. Dear Lord, you can't have it both ways. But the Red Book editors, they are not done. They say, recognize this. Moana is a really special character to young girls of Polynesian descent who have never seen a Disney princess who looks like them. Just like how Tiana from The Princess and the Frog likely resonated with young black women who had waited decades to see themselves represented. But wait a second. Wouldn't that be exactly why little girls of all races should love Moana? So that we can honor and look up to role models and princesses because of who they are, not because of their skin color? Isn't it precious to see little kids love these princesses and want to be like them and admire their culture too? The authors here are making a huge logical error. Nobody's belittling Polynesian culture. If wearing the costume demeans the culture, then so does the movie. But of course it doesn't. They keep going. White girls, they say, have plenty of princesses to choose from. There's Belle, they say, Ariel, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. You get the idea. If your Caucasian son or daughter doesn't get to be exactly what they wanted for Halloween, encourage them to take a step back and realize that they're awash in privileges that the real Moanas and Tianas of the world will likely never see, because the world is full of racist a-holes. Ah ha 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 ha. And now we get to the real point of the article, hatred of Donald Trump. And those a-holes, they say, are becoming even more empowered. Our president, they say, is a hate group apologist who tries to ban refugees from seeking asylum in our country simply because of their faith. Meanwhile, black Americans continue to be killed by police and anti-Semitic voices feel louder and more powerful than they have in decades. And there we have it. These virtue-signaling hypocrites don't care about respecting culture. They're just using culture as a tool to hack Donald Trump. Lame. Thank goodness they're almost done. They finish by saying, to clarify, no one is telling you to ban your child from belting out Moana songs in your living room. They're good songs. Moana is a powerful, phenomenal Disney heroine who relies on more than just her CGI perfection to save the day. No, they're not telling you that your kid can't sing Moana songs yet. But don't worry, soon that is exactly what they'll be telling you. Because really, how is that any different? If you're singing the song, you're pretending to be the girl. If you're dressing up like her, you're pretending to be the girl. And both are positive things, celebrating the culture of the Polynesian princess, and these Red Book editors are just a bunch of race-baiting dimwits. And that is my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.